Okay, thanks everybody for joining us in another one of our webinars, although it's our first webinar for 2025. And for those of you who haven't been to any of our webinars, welcome. Some of you may know, we typically like to pick up topics that we've sort of seeing in the marketplace, especially relevant to our customers and what we're seeing out there. This month's topic really has to do with SAP S/4HANA. And we'll talk about really what it is that we are seeing out there in terms of our customers implementing it, some of the gaps that we are seeing being picked up, probably not being planned for, surprising some of our customers in the market at large, and trying to demystify it and maybe provide you with some intel and information that can help you prepare better for when this becomes something that you're tackling or you might be in the middle of it at the moment. So, get that right. Joining me today, really my faithful panel. Troy on my right. Troy is the co-founder of Satori, has been in the business since the beginning, also in charge of our existing accounts and business development. Lots of experience with those accounts and seeing them sort of go through these processes. Natalia Levenkova, General Manager for our customer success team, really responsible for everything in terms of implementation, support, migration and the like. So really across a lot of the detail, and we'll get into quite a bit of the kind of things that we are seeing out there. So before we get into the detail, just to remind you that there is a Q&A function. We welcome and would actually love to answer questions as we go through today's process. Feel free to put them into the Q&A panel at any time. We'll probably address them towards the end, try to get to as many as we can, but really would welcome them if anything comes to mind. All right, so just to give you a bit of context from why it is that we are presenting this particular topic, a bit different, although very related to what it is that we do. Well, the first thing is that, in fact, if we look at Satori ourselves, providing financial control monitoring for enterprise clients, particularly in the Australia, New Zealand territory and beyond, 60% of our customers are in fact on SAP. We have been supporting them historically on ECC 6, the prior version to this. Many of them are still on it, some are migrating, and we've seen many already migrate across to S/4HANA. So, of course, this is a topic that's very dear to our hearts and is consuming a lot of our time and attention. And what we've seen organizations really go through is that, of course, this is a very time-consuming effort. It's an expensive effort. As you all well know, those of you are certainly looking at doing this. But in reality, that kind of pressure, when it's being put on an organization in this context, has resulted in a few things. So the first one that we've noticed is that most customers who are going down this path are actually replicating what they had in ECC 6 in terms of how it's been configured. Not many are actually totally adopting the new capability out the box. They're really sort of migrating what they have, which makes sense in many ways. But it does mean that they're also carrying a lot of legacy problems that they have had previously into the new world, and we'll get into some detail there. The other one is, of course, one of the key differentiators or the key reasons to move to S/4HANA, apart from the fact that SAP is very much pushing that agenda, is the move to the cloud, which makes a lot of sense. And I think there's an expectation out of that access to data would become quite easy. We'll explore that. It's not as simple as it might sound or the brochure might tell you. We'll talk a bit about what the challenges are through that. The other one is that we've noticed many organizations in terms of how they organized both functionally as well as within the application. Whatever silos existed prior typically remain in the new application, and any additional integration or cross sort of functional or control type of reporting is not actually that easy, and unless it's being addressed very purposefully, we've noticed organizations, in fact, still having those same challenges as they did prior to SAP S/4HANA, unless, again, they've looked at it as part of their journey. So the biggest takeaway for us is that, of course, because of the expense and time taken to look at this technology, and of course, often it's comes alongside a transformation process, that organizations are really overwhelmed, and that they don't have the time or appetite to always, or even an understanding to look at those deficiencies that may exist out within SAP S/4HANA, and addressing them in any way outside of that particular tool set. And even those that do understand it and may have a recognition that that's happening, we have noticed that despite the best intentions, post the implementation, they're just very change fatigued. Probably budgets has been hit quite hard, and all of those type of things. So to look beyond SAP for other solutions to help provide better financial control, despite the best of intentions, is not always happening. And that's a pity, and I think it is a function of organizations not really planning for that in advance. So really, why we're coming to you at this is that we've got direct custom experience with our customers in seeing that that financial control is going to be better done in SAP S/4HANA, and of course there are many areas where that is the case. But every one of our customers who have felt that perhaps they don't need our services once they've done the upgrade, and some of us actually have notified us that they're planning to switch it off, have all come back to us. We haven't had a single one that in fact has realized that they can do without our services, and I'm sure it applies to a number of other control environments which we don't necessarily address. So really important to think about these things beyond just the obvious. So before we get into that, maybe I'll just turn over to Troy and take a step back. Let's talk about what is SAP S/4HANA. Some of you probably know some of these facts and figures and that type of thing, but I think it's good to establish the context.
Thanks, Mark.
Troy, over to you.
So S/4HANA is the successor of the SAP ECC product, which has been around for a long time, and the support's ending in 2027. So there's obviously a rush in the industry to get customers upgraded before that time runs out. So traditionally, SAP was an application built to run on either Oracle, Microsoft, or IBM, and 5 or odd years ago, SAP came out with the HANA product, which essentially is their own database. Now they're in command of their own destiny, and instead of paying some of your license fees to Oracle, you're now paying everything to SAP. So just some of the benefits of this new platform. So as Mark mentioned, the big drive towards cloud. So now S/4HANA gives customers that capability. However, they can still remain on premise for customers that are not prepared to go to cloud. Improvements around performance and speed, which you would expect with a new product. Simplified table structure, which Natalia will touch on in her, give us some examples of the simplified table structure and what that potentially could mean. The enhanced user front end, the real-time ability to conduct real-time analysis rather than previously in ECC, it was a lot of batch mode processing, so you couldn't run reports until a batch was processed, and enhanced security to support the move to the cloud. So I just want to run through some points for consideration, because a lot of you on the call probably that moved to S/4HANA or are moving. And based on our experience, and we'll be showing you some live examples today, that we're not seeing any significant improvement in error breakdown or errors compared to the legacy technology. There's also the issue around siloed information, which is not every customer has all their data in SAP. Typically, they have third-party data sets. Could have corporate card product that's different. They could have a procurement system that's different, etc. And the big thing we're still seeing is that customers don't really have any improved access or limited improved access to information post-upgrade. Still the same complicated process they need to go through, and unfortunately, some of our customers end up with less capability once the upgrade's been completed. project overruns and etc. And they've got to revert back to good old spreadsheets to just do business as usual. So there is a SAP, of course, do offer a solution. It's a product called Financial Management FCM, Financial Compliance Management. It was rebadged from a product called SAP Closing Cockpit, which is designed for financial close. So like many software providers, to fill a new gap in the market, they sometimes rebadge and refine a product they already have. So that's what's happened with SAP. And it's not a bolt-on solution, unfortunately. It requires a lot of customization. We've seen from the implementations it's quite a basic implementation, probably because of the cost of the services. So you need to develop a project scope and you need to go to a consulting firm, Accenture, KPMG, those folks out there, and they would come in and implement something for you that's customized based on your SAP configuration. So unless you have FCM, then essentially you're left to do your own, so build something internally, use spreadsheets, or use the reporting capabilities in SAP to try and do this type of analysis.
Great. Thanks, Troy. I mean, I think that gives us a lot of context there. Again, some of you may be aware of it. So what we thought is just to get you a bit engaged in it and also to give us a sense of the audience out there, we're running our first poll, which I will launch now. Hopefully that you'll see this in front of you. Really asking you to give us an idea of where you are in your S/4HANA journey, knowing that we will have some people on this call who don't actually not in SAP house. The last option gives you that. But some of you who are on SAP will have either transitioned or in the process, or maybe haven't even started thinking about it. And of course, time is of the essence there. So I'll give a bit of time for you to just put your answers in there, give it a few minutes and a few seconds, and we'll quickly share the results once we have those in there. Yeah, I can see a couple of more people answering. All right, I'll stop it there. I apologize if anybody's about to put in their answer.
So we've got
Sorry, our sound system is playing up. We've got some accompanying music. All right, so just to share the results with you, hopefully you'll see this on the screen. Yeah, quite an even spread. Probably the majority needing to migrate, haven't commenced the process. Probably those are the ones who are interested to understand this topic and why you're joining us today. So that's really quite interesting. A third of you need to migrate, and I'm sure the pressure is on there. Of course, SAP are talking about 2027, but I'm aware of already a few organizations who are getting an extension, and there's some exceptions to the rule. But yeah, any thoughts on this, guys?
No, so I think even for the folks out there that don't have S/4HANA, we come across the same challenges with Oracle, where we've got customers moving to the new Oracle Fusion product, exactly the same issues. Essentially what that product is a lift and shift of existing Oracle product. So these challenges are not just SAP, it's across the board. But yeah, I mean, it's it's quite an even spread. Yeah, so just a point.
No, really good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for participating in that. We'll then share the result with you. And as you would have seen, you should hopefully be able to close that in front of you. And I'm going to hand over to Natalia, because Natalia is really across the detail, and we've extracted a few case studies, examples. These are real customer case studies that we've worked through. It's not everything, but it hopefully gives you a sense of some of the challenges out there. So Natalia, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I just picked some examples to illustrate the points that Mark and Troy made earlier in the webinar. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the compliance management and versus continuous control monitoring. So as Troy mentioned that The rules are quite basic, and I will use as an example, our favorite example of duplicate invoices. So the duplicate invoice detection is quite basic in the standard implementation. So as Troy said, that you might create a big project and implement more complicated rules, but what you get is basic and more commonly based on the duplicate date and amount. And to your point, Troy, on Oracle, I think it's the same, the standard controls in Oracle also just around a couple of fields. So what happens is that you will miss lots of potential duplicates. For example, it will miss the duplicates where invoice number entered or scanned incorrectly. So I took some screenshots from some of our customers' systems. Of course, I removed all the sensitive information, but you can see from the comment that it says that basically the original invoice was entered with a space in the invoice number, and that allowed for the duplicate invoice to be entered. The next example is around invoices raised against incorrect vendors or duplicate vendors. That's one of the scenarios that is most difficult to be detected because it's not obvious when you're processing transactions against the wrong vendor. And here you can see that in our example, in the comment, it says that it was processed against the incorrect vendor due to the incorrect purchase order. And my last example on this point is around invoice amount. So even if the financial compliance management rules are looking at the amounts, what we see happens from time to time that people, when they enter in invoice amount, they might enter, say, $100 instead of $100.99, or it might be there might be a typo, or it might be scanned incorrectly. In this particular case, again, it won't be picked up by the compliance module. And yeah, I have an example here when where the invoice was entered with 69 cents, and then the proper invoice was entered with 59 cents. So again, that allowed for the duplicate to happen. Another thing that I wanted to touch base on is the volume of the exceptions before and after S/4HANA implementation. Troy mentioned it before, but I just wanted to illustrate it with some screenshots from our customer dashboards. So here you can see that S/4HANA was implemented in September last year. And if you ignore February, which is not a full month yet, and I took this screenshot maybe a week before preparing for the webinar, you can see that there's no any significant change in the volume of the exceptions every month, so it stays the same. That means that probably you have the same issues happening. And I also decided to have a look at the breakdown to understand if the cause of the issues has changed since the implementation of S/4HANA. But again, you can see if you look at the breakdown by, if you could just click and highlight the issues, if you could just, yeah. So if you compare the issues, it's a very similar breakdown. So we compare similar periods in ECC and S/4HANA exceptions, and the same with the how these issues are being addressed. Again, very similar numbers, and the same with the root causes. You still have your data entry issues, scanning issues, and things like that. So that's what we see across our customers. Unfortunately, there's no better controls in S/4HANA, and also you have your business processes where people are involved and they're making mistakes. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on is the data migration and data access. So with the data migration, we also observed lots of issues with some of our customers. We actually saw a spike in the exceptions after the implementation due to various reasons, and I will go through some of them. So one of the issues we observed is the data is being extracted in different ways using different methods. And that resulted for some of our customers in the same records extracted multiple times and loaded in S/4HANA multiple times. So, for example, we observed in a few customers that some invoices were loaded twice, and it resulted in multiple duplicate payments before it was stopped. The second issue we saw was due to the fact that in S/4HANA, they were trying, as Troy was saying, they were trying to simplify the structure of the tables, and they merge lots of original tables into bigger tables or views. And for example, the vendors and customers are now sitting in one huge business partner entity. And what we observed again, that vendors were migrated through different migration methods to S/4HANA, and the same vendor was entered under two different IDs and business partner entity, and resulted in duplicate record and again duplicate invoices. And the last example I'm going to use, the way how you migrate your open transactions, might be open sales orders, purchase orders, invoices. If it's not handled properly, an open invoice in ECC might be reprocessed and posted again in S/4HANA. Again, we saw it multiple times again. And it's not just the invoices, you might migrate purchase order twice, and again, that will lead to a duplicate invoice. And the last point is on the data access. So that's some challenges we faced when we were working with our customers to extract data from S/4HANA. First of all, it's a new data model. Many traditional tables we all know were eliminated, and they introduced so-called core data services views. So some tables that we still wanted to have access to, we couldn't access. So to that point, CDS views, recommended by SAP to be used to access data, but it really requires some subject matter expert who is normally the consultant team of one of the big fours, and once they're gone, they often don't have this knowledge on how they structured, how to access data, how to find the fields you want to look at. And on top of that, you might need to create custom views to be able to access the traditional tables, especially if you were migrating from ECC to S/4HANA and you moved your traditional SAP tables into new implementation. And the last one, the APIs. So we used S/4HANA APIs. That's a great way to access data, very easy to get through. But unfortunately, they're not covering all the data points you might need access to. And also the performance was a big issue. And again, we needed to understand how we can limit those huge tables and views in terms of the fields we're extracting and records, how we can limit it to make the performance better. Yep.
So that's great. Thanks, Natalia. A bit of detail there, getting into some technical stuff, but hopefully just to give you some pointers and examples of the different areas to watch out for. We've got one more poll, really just doing the two, and that is really to just understand what are the additional measures that you're going to be you're possibly looking at to address financial control in addition to SAP S/4HANA. So I've launched that, hopefully that's in front of you now. Just trying to understand whether you plan to rely mostly on S/4HANA, which has been really our experience, whether there's a plan to look at some additional systems or still undecided, which I think some of you may be, especially based on the fact that I see some are still deciding on the process. And knowing that some of you are not on the SAP path, so not necessarily relevant for you. Give it a couple of minutes, get some of those answers up there, and I'll share the results in a few seconds. All right, just for the sake of timing, because I know we don't have a lot of time and I do want to get to some some questions. I'll end the poll and share the results. Hopefully you can see that.
Sorry, I need that.
Oh.
I closed it, sorry. Sorry, I accidentally closed it.
All right, yeah, so I can see just the bulk, half of you are planning to use some number of additional systems outside of SAP for financial control. Good news. Hopefully it's us, but if not, still good news. And I think our experience is that it is very relevant. Up to almost 20% still relying on SAP primarily. Another 20% still deciding, which is understandable. And of course, the remainder are those who are still, not on SAP paths are not relevant. Any thoughts on that, guys? I mean, is it surprising?
I think, I guess the audience that maybe already have relying on SAP for this may be able to ask them questions now with some of this knowledge, but just a sanity check to make sure this is covered. But so.
Good stuff. All right. Yeah, no, thanks, Troy. All right, so I'll stop sharing that and just go back to the just to really wrap things up and handle, talk about some of the questions that we're getting and really encouraging you maybe at this time while we wrap it up to just put in some questions into the Q&A and we'll spend some time taking them. But Troy, maybe just a sort of a overview of what you think the key takeaways are.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Let us know.
So the obvious big one is that I think we've repeated through this presentation, Natalia's given some concrete examples that you potentially know better off with S4HANA. It's not because it's not a good product, just that you think, it's 30, some of the SAP customers would have been on that platform since, for the last 30, 35 years, and migrating these massive organizations across to a new platform, it's not trivial, and they can't exactly reinvent the whole wheel. So they've almost got to take a lot of legacy processes and configurations across to new platforms. So talking about a very complex world with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of customers worldwide. So the data issue, sorry, Mark, the next point. I think the big point is, we see it coming a lot from IT and probably that comes from a lot from the consulting team and the consultants like Accenture, and I'm picking on Accenture and KPMG, but the implementation partners who, when they're pitching for the upgrade, they're telling the business that it's all covered, we've done it before, but we're just not seeing that in the facts. So just be careful too, as Mark mentioned, we do have a number of customers that have gone through upgrades and also migrations to new platforms. So customers have gone from Oracle to SAP and decided that it's all covered, and then 6 or 12 months later they come back to us. So every customer actually we've gone through this business actually come back. Not one of them has been able to solve the problem post upgrade or migration. So data is still the big challenge. It's probably 80% of the bane of our lives, and it's complicated stuff. So I think Natalia's given some points there, just food for thought. And in fact, just on the data, had just this week a customer that's migrating to just migrated actually to S4HANA, and they have our product, and IT are now going through a process to see if they can replicate it themselves. And the irony is that particular customer last year, the IT was asking us for data that they couldn't access. So not too sure how they think they're going to replicate what we do. But it's not just the software that does it. It's really about the intellectual property that we have of doing these projects over and over and over again. And we've spoken a lot today about duplicate payments or duplicate invoices, and it's a bit vanilla, a vanilla topic, but it can be complicated to try and detect these errors, and there can be many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what you don't want to do also is deliver a whole telephone book of exceptions to the business to follow up when there may not be any issues. So there's a bit of an art to getting this right. So getting other third parties to try and replicate what we've built up over the last 10 years is not an easy task.
Right. Thanks, Troy. I mean, I think hopefully that's given all of you a bit of food for thought. We are on the hour, in fact, on the half hour, should I say. So we have exceeded allocated time. Still happy to hang around for another 5 minutes or so to answer any questions. So if there is anything that you'd like to ask, then feel free to post it there. First question that always comes up for us is this being recorded? Will you share it? Absolutely. So we will after this send out the questions to you. The recording to you, and you can share it with colleagues. The other thing, the one question that has come up is, and maybe I'm not sure that we are qualified to answer, is why do we think that some of these areas have not been well addressed by SAP, despite obviously that being one of the claims that financial control is more better enhanced. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on why that is.
Just thinking, working in a very complicated world, you're relying on a lot of people in the organisation. And so we see a lot of the times that Natalia mentioned that you'll have a partner or an IT department that implemented a product and they move on, or you change partners, and then all the knowledge is lost. Things weren't documented properly, and there's an awful lot of guessing going on.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the business suffers because of this. And what happens? End up going back to spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So there's no option but just drop back to spreadsheets and try and solve the problem that way.
Yeah.
And we have customers that have implemented new systems, migrated this thing, trying to get data for the last 3 years. So it's not just SAP customers, it's across the board, but I think just you're working in a very complicated environment.
Yeah. And probably one last question I'll just take off the list here. We've got somebody asking about the use of Concur. So we're using Concur as well as SAP S/4HANA. Have we, as far as that aspect of things, probably around corporate cards, I imagine, have we seen an improvement?
I'm not an expert, but from the implementation we've seen, we still treat Concur as a separate system because there is no real integration between Concur and SAP. So we still do cross checks between those two systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I know we're a bit over time, so just want to say a big thank you, first of all, to Troy and Natalia for sharing all of this information. Thank you to all of you who've joined us. We will be looking out for probably another webinar in April on some other relevant topic, but feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions on this or anything else. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.